Tampa Bay Lightning, a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals. There seems to be one common denominator with the success of the Islanders over the last couple of years, and that is their head coach. What makes Barry Trotz one of the best coaches right now in the NHL?
You know, for me, it's his approach. It's his understanding of today's athletes. It's his ability to communicate. It's his ability to prove or to convince players that he can make them better. And if they buy in, the group will win, and you will enhance your career at the same time. And he's delivered on that promise time and time again. As a matter of fact, he delivered so much on that promise that he's no longer in Washington, and that hasn't even been the case for them. And I would suggest that they have potentially, but they haven't backed it up, a more talented roster. So does the coach matter? He matters enormously. And Barry Trotz has had the perfect words at the perfect time. Even last night talking about how special an event it was. He's not talking about tactics. He's not talking about the Boston Bruins and what they do well. He's talking about this is a moment that I wanted our guys to recognize. He's almost talking to you like your father or grandfather. And I think the players, Barry will love that I call him a grandfather. I think the players really understand him and get what he's all about. And he has definitely got their attention and got them bought in. So we are a team first. This happens to dovetail exactly with what Lou Lamoriello believes in for a hockey team. And that's why it's been so successful. You got a perfect tandem there.
And a coach obviously has the pulse of his team, and maybe none more so than Barry Trotz and Matt Barzal, who really had his coming out party here in round 2 against the Boston Bruins. He was quiet up until this point, but he made a massive impact. And then you look at his time on ice in Game 6, and the minutes are staggering.
Staggeringly low.
Right.
You know what, though? This has kind of a doubling effect. First of all, it keeps Matt Barzal on cue. He was dynamic. He was one of the main reasons why they won this series. He came alive, gave them more scoring, and all of a sudden they were able to kind of take off. It also coincided with Boston losing a defenseman, just for clarity, in Brandon Carlo. But he came alive. He was a leader. It came down to Game 6, and you can see the ice time right there in the third period, 2 minutes and 45 seconds for arguably your best forward. It doesn't matter. Why do I say this has a doubling effect? Because the other players see that and they say, my goodness, this guy backs up what he's preaching to us. When he's talking about sacrifice and play selflessly, do everything for the commitment of the team, there's not a lot of teams in the National Hockey League that are going to kind of take their star player and not give him the minutes.
Right.
Last night, the Isles were dialed in right from the drop of the puck. I felt like they had control of that game 3 minutes in, and they never let up until it was over. It was impressive. The fact that Matt Barzal wasn't necessarily a key contributor the way he had been offensively, it doesn't matter. The group won. That's what the Islanders stand for. That's why they're on such a great roll right now. And that's why people shouldn't sleep on the Islanders, even against a team as great as the Tampa Bay Lightning. These guys, they can bring it.
All right, so let's look ahead to that next round. Again, it's a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Final. The Bolts took down the Islanders in 6 games to advance on to the Cup Final, and we know how that played out. This time around, is the matchup any different in your eyes with how these two teams have changed in the course of 365 days?
It is different. And if I start with the Lightning, I think I can't get by the fact of the job that Eric Chernak has done for himself, elevating himself in the lineup. I think it would shock a lot of people if you found out that he has the second most points among a decor that hasn't scored a goal yet, to be fair. But he does have 6 assists in the 11 games he's played in. He's been a dominant player. He's been so good that even a guy like David Savard, that was brought in really to be a top 4 pairing guy, has played in the third pair all playoffs when he's been healthy. So the Lightning are better, number one. That's got to really make the Islanders feel good.
Great.
By the way, the Lightning are better. So that's scary. In terms of the Islanders, the good news for them, they are dialed in, and I do believe they're a better hockey team this year. I think they've learned from their experiences. I think Barry Trotz has a great way of using adversity and setbacks to build up a bigger, stronger, better base. And that's why I have this series much closer than probably most people you'll hear out there do. I do not think that Tampa is going to walk all over the Islanders. I think they're battle-tested. I think they've got 4 lines that can match Tampa evenly, and they will have a specific game plan that will call for some lines just to try to play even. Don't worry about scoring. Just be even.
Yeah.
Execute on our game plan.
Hang in there.
You watched the game with Boston last night. what would you say was their game plan? And you and I haven't talked about this in 2 minutes. It was pretty obvious.
Get the puck in behind the defense and just pound them, right?
Exactly.
Every single time.
And specifically behind
McAvoy.
Charlie McAvoy.
Yeah, exactly.
And they did it to a T, and it worked.
Yeah,
they'll have the same type of a game plan in terms of with Tampa, but they'll have more weapons to try to cover off.
All right, the first 2 games down in Tampa, and then it comes back to the Coliseum, and Fort Never Lose, and those crazy fans out there for games 3 and 4. We look forward to that series coming up in the next couple of days.
When Bruce felt that the penalties should have been more equal, he said it's like they're the New York Saints. Boy, that took off. The New Orleans Saints NFL team, tackle football, they chimed in, as Dano put it. I want you guys to chime in on J.G. Pageau. Plus 11.
First of all, how do you get the rights to the T-shirts? Because they will be selling like crazy outside Nassau Coliseum. It'll be going
probably
New
already
York
done
Saints,
for the next game, round 3.
I would think, yeah. So, I mean, it's I think they've got another new nickname.
I
right
like
now.
where your head's at. I have an idea about phone cards, as long as we're talking about business, with payphones, because you see payphones all around. I'm being told it's cell phones. Never mind that. Let's talk about this matchup, this series, because we're talking about the reigning Stanley Cup.
Are we getting off track here?
So, yeah, well, wait a sec. Like, if you had the T-shirt of a Saint as a hockey player with a halo above his head.
Yes.
New York Saints.
Yes.
Perfect.
Somebody's marketing it now. You already gave your brilliant idea away, Bruce.
Yeah, oh well.
Right here on
That's the only one I've ever had, so there you go.
We get brilliant ideas and insights from you guys when it comes to a matchup. Now, ironically enough, we'll get to J.G. Pageau, but let's focus in on this series first, because it is a rematch at the same stage of the playoffs. We're talking about the reigning Cup champs in the 3rd round playing against the Islanders. Last year, they were the 6th seed. This year, totally different setup. But bottom line, what reason is there for Islanders fans to believe that this could come out differently, Coach?
Well, I mean, they lost in Game 6 in overtime. That's pretty close last year. And they're a better team this year. I mean, they may have lost Anders Lee, but they picked up Palmieri and Zajac, 2 very good hockey players. So, and they're a year with more experience. And I don't care what anybody says, and you hear it all the time. Oh, the Islanders, you know, they just play as a team. But is there a better team that has 2 top-notch goalies, has 6 top-notch defense, and 12 top-notch forwards? I mean, there's, you know, Tampa might be the only team that equals that depth. And I watched, you know, very closely that game last night. And I don't think there was a team on the planet that could have beaten the Islanders last night. The way they were skating.
Wow.
The way
High praise.
I mean, they didn't give Boston an inch, especially in the 3rd period. Like, I mean, the time and space was taken away. The back pressure was taken away. The gaps were there. There was nothing they could do. And Boston is a very quick team, and they looked very slow in the 3rd period. They looked tired. I was telling my wife, I said, they looked tired. They looked defeated. And it wasn't that they were defeated or tired. New York made them look that way.
If you look behind that piece of glass and the lens, Charlie McAvoy is nodding yes to what you said, because it was a rough night for the Boston Bruins. Dano, I had the privilege of watching the game alongside you. His praise, and you said lofty praise, the way they looked last night, can they sustain that? No Anders Lee, we've made the point a number of times. Can they sustain the way they played last night throughout an entire series against a team that is as explosive as Tampa?
It's going to take a monumental effort for them to beat the defending Stanley Cup champions. Yes, I agree with Bruce. As far as a team, they're as good as anybody. Tampa Bay, though, has been there, done that, won the Stanley Cup last year. They went through that experience. They understand every nuance, everything that has to be done, whether you're leading, whether you're behind, whether you have a tough night, you have to stay even-keeled. And that's what you learn as a champion. And their high-end skill is better. Having said that, I give the Islanders a real good puncher's chance from the standpoint that they're uncomfortable being uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is they can get outshot, they can get outplayed, but they're never out of a game. That is a valuable asset. Then they make a surge. Then they get opportunistic. Then they pound you into submission like they did yesterday, where they made the Bruins look drained, tired, and they just kind of took the will out of the Boston Bruins in the opposition at the time. And Boston was banged up on the back end, and that made a difference as well. But I love it. Some people say, well, they don't play the most exciting style hockey. It was plenty fun for me last night. They were precision-like.
Yeah.
And they were on the go when they had to be. And Brock Nelson scored a beautiful goal, and he was on the puck all night. And their fourth line, doing their fourth line. Varlamov, which we know maybe is 50% of the battle or more. You got to match the best goaltender in the National Hockey League and in the world in Vasilevsky. Well, he's been pretty darn good these playoffs, and their defense make it very difficult for top players. They make it uncomfortable. That's easier said than done. A lot of teams don't get in the face of the top players. The Islanders made a point of getting all over Charlie McAvoy, even if they had to cross the line every once in a while. It didn't matter to them. They were going to do what it took to win. So expect them to be in the face of Kucherov and Braden Point. And those guys, they play hard. They compete. Not only have that all-world skill, but the Islanders don't worry one bit if they get them upset, if they give them a little stick, if they get in their face. And I like that because not enough teams do that against top players. I'm not saying take penalties. I'm not saying goon it up. This is not a whole different era. But you got to make top players uncomfortable. And if you don't have a chance. If you want to play a pond hockey game come playoff time, a team like Tampa Bay will eat you apart.
Yes, they will. But first of all, I mean, the Islanders are one of the least penalized teams in the league. I mean, according
they
to
initiate, don't retaliate.
They initiate. Well, that's another thing. You could talk about initiate, don't retaliate. But at the same time, you look at Tampa's power plays at like 47% or something gaudy.
Absurd, yeah.
So, I mean, if they don't take penalties, 5-on-5, I think they might be the better team. And you look at the numbers, I think, you're talking about Pajot, who's plus 13, and Mayfield plus 11, and all the top players on Tampa are like plus one, because they're getting all their points, as many points as they're getting on the power play. So if you can stay out of the box, if you're the Islanders, I think you got every bit of good a chance to win as anybody else. And Barry's fooled them. Everybody thinks that they don't have an offensive team and they play boring. They don't play boring.
They score a lot.
They score and they go to the net and they get the pucks behind the D and they play a 200-foot game, every one of them. And if that's boring because they don't have Alex Ovechkin or they don't have Steven Stamkos on your team, then so be it. But he's doing that little chuckle behind the bench. Let them think this. And we know we're a good team, and we're 4 lines deep as a team.
Yeah, let's not forget guys like Josh Bailey who fly under the radar. He just does the right thing. Throughout a hockey game, he makes plays. He's a terrific passer, a veteran guy. They've got, like Bruce said, plenty of talent, but to me, it's understanding your role and knowing it to a T and everybody buying in, playing together. And I have a little familiarity with their general manager, Lou Lamoriello. In fact, about 25 years worth, and fortunate enough, and I humbly say, to win 3 Stanley Cup championships with him. So believe me, these guys are sending the message. And Barry Trotz, obviously, you talked about, and he won the Cup of the Capitals, sending the message to his team that, guys, if you listen to me, we've got enough skill, we've got enough talent and goaltending, we play structured, we can beat anybody. And they believe that. And that's
clearly
true. And they should believe it. And like I said, Lou Lamoriello is one of those guys. Boy, he'll preach it to you. He'll tell you, you play this way, and I guarantee you, you're going to have success as a team. May have to sacrifice a point here, but don't cheat on the wrong side of the puck. You may have to sacrifice here and block an extra shot, make an extra hit, but it'll all be worth it, and you will be rewarded at the end. And their star player, Matthew Barzal, stepped up those couple of games, didn't get a lot of ice time last night because it was circumstances. And you accept that because they're going to need him to shine against the Tampa Bay Lightning for sure and make a highlight reel play here and there like he did against the Bruins at times. But that's what they are. They're a team, and everyone stands. Some nights it's your night. Some nights it's the 4th line that's carried us, so they're going to be playing more.